independence that is required to investigate each and every credible claim of corruption and prosecute those who are responsible. The fourth lesson that we should learn from this experience is that the existing measures, with regard to the experience that we have had, the existing measures to ensure ethical conduct in the executive, among public representatives, and in the public service are not adequate. Government needs to consider instituting lifestyle audits of all senior political leaders and government officials as a matter of agency. If we were to have lifestyle audits right across the board, we should be able to minimize temptations and incidents of corruption. Our efforts to grow the economy are heavily dependent on entities like Eskom, Transnet, and PRASA to provide goods and services to citizens and business alike efficiently and affordably. Madam Speaker, it is therefore essential that we act boldly to root out corruption in all these entities and return them to financial and operational effectiveness. The extent and the nature of this problem means that it cannot be achieved by government alone. It requires the involvement of institutions right across society, including the Public Protector, the Auditor General, law enforcement agencies, civil society groups, political parties, and Parliament. And this is a challenge that we should all take up. We are hopeful that all these efforts on various fronts will succeed in ending corruption, and let us admit that we have learned important lessons with regard to the corruption that has been raging in our country. What we now need to do is to buckle down and learn from these lessons and pursue those who've been involved in corrupt acts. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Ranto.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you, Deputy President, for the response. But Deputy President, yesterday we had a witness in the inquiry who said we took too long to attend to the corruption that is happening in the SOs, in the entities. Deputy President, as a chair of the IMC on SOE reform and a member of the cabinet of South Africa, why did you not do anything about the corruption in the SOEs?
The Honorable, the Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Madam Speaker, as I said in my initial input, these incidents of corruption are only now spewing out in the manner that all of us have become aware of them. And to this end, if you will listen, to this end, the various parliamentary committees have now been set up to go through all these. And the admission that will be made is that, yes, as news has been coming out about what's been happening in our various state-owned enterprises, we have delayed and taken too long to act against those who have been involved in all these acts. The IMC that has been set up, which I chair, is an IMC that is looking at policy parameters on, for instance, the share ownership, architecture. It's been looking at things such as the appointment to boards, how board members should be appointed, how remuneration to state-owned enterprise executives should be organized, and indeed how the Presidential Review Commission's work should now be implemented. Now, we have relied on the criminal justice agencies to, as they get information, to get down and investigate all these. And in some cases, there have been lapses. For instance, when it comes to PRASA, it had to take the board or board members to take the NPA to court to say, why are you not investigating some of these issues or cases that have been presented to you? Now, there have been lapses, and the lapses have been across the board. But to be correct, the public protector has also conducted quite a number of investigations, and she has made a number of recommendations as well. The Auditor General has also found a number of flaws in all this. Now, what all this calls for is that all of us must now be involved in a massive effort to root out corruption in all state institutions. And that's why we are saying it should also even start here at the level of elected political office bearers, that they must be the ones who will do these audits so that we can declare more directly, precisely what our interests are. And that is why I've also said, when it comes to state-owned enterprises, there needs to be a clear separation between what the board is entitled to do and what management can do. Where there has been failure, it's where board members have mixed their roles with executive members, where they've meddled and gotten involved in operational matters, and where they have second-guessed the role of executives. And that is where we need to start and effect a clear separation of the roles that we should have in all these state-owned enterprises. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Esther Reason.
Somlomo kube yiphutha beqonda ukucindezela mina angazi uma ngivumela ngiqhubeke yini.
Qhubeka bhuti.
Ngiyathokoza Somlomo. Honorable Deputy President, I like the admission that you are only realizing this now. I would imagine you speak for the rest of the House, because we have a president who the ANC elected with 783 charges of corruption over his head. You were silent then. The Scorpions were disbanded. You were silent then. The law enforcement agencies have been captured. You are silent, albeit the warning signs have all along been there. Your silence has aided and abetted the prevalence of corruption in this country. So why should we believe you now that there's political will when the country is already in the gutter? And when we said these things, we were accused of politicking. You say we must start here. The opposition started here many years ago raising these things, but you kept quiet. So now this is a face-saving exercise in the face of crisis. Why should we believe you now when all along you have run away from the realities we presented before you?
The Honorable, the Deputy President.
This is not the time for finger pointing. This is the time for action. And I welcome, listen. I welcome your enthusiasm.
Order, honorable members.
I welcome your robust enthusiasm with regard to this matter. We welcome it because what you are displaying, and indeed what all of us are displaying, is that we abhor corruption. We want to root out corruption from South Africa in our state-owned enterprises. Now, this is a message, and this is a voice, or these are voices that must raise their decibels so that it becomes very clear that we want a corruption-free South Africa. We want to rid this country of corruption. And as I said in my main input, rather than be screaming and shouting, as many of you are doing on the other side, let us buckle down and work together to root out this corruption. That is what we should be doing, especially you, lady, who is pointing fingers. This is the time where we should act together. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Shivambu.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Now, the reality of the situation, Deputy President, is that we are witnessing looting at a mega industrial stage and form in South Africa. As a result, state-owned companies owe to the excess of 250 billion rand of guaranteed debt, such that if the lenders would withdraw that money, it will have to be the responsibility of the state. It will collapse the whole fiscus. Now, in the recent past, when there were allegations that were later on proven and cleared by the board of the PIC, Mr. Gigaba commissioned a forensic audit on the PIC. But it's a prima facie case here of Eskom of 500 million rands that has been paid to Trillion Capital for doing nothing, absolutely nothing. That has been confirmed by the board and everyone else concerned, including the former COO of Trillion Capital, which is a Gupta-linked company, are saying that we received 500 million rands for nothing. Why hasn't there been a forensic audit commissioned on Eskom? We are responsible for state-owned companies. Why hasn't government done anything? Yes, we're doing something as parliament. Why hasn't government done anything about the 500 million that has been paid to Trillion Capital? Why is there no forensic audit? Are you scared of the Guptas? And lastly, are you going to be removed as Deputy President? Because your friend said that you're going to be removed as Deputy President of South Africa very soon. It might be this week or tomorrow. Please clarify that.
Honorable Deputy President.
Let me start off with this 500 million. My information, Honorable Shivambu, is that there has been an investigation, or an investigation is ongoing. I am on record as saying that any amounts of money that were unduly paid should be returned, should be paid back, because that money belongs to all of us as South Africans. So any amount that has been paid out unduly, and particularly monies that have been paid out without any invoice, without any work having been done, should be returned and should be returned immediately. Now, I have heard the responses from companies such as McKinsey saying that if a court of law says they should return it, they will return it. And I'm saying that that is going to delay this matter unduly. Those amounts should be returned, and they should be returned immediately. And if any court has to rule, the money should now be in the coffers of Eskom, because it belongs to the people of South Africa. In relation, and those who were responsible, by the way, those who were responsible in dispensing all these largesse and these monies should be taken to book. They should be investigated, and our law enforcement agencies should immediately be on the case and to make sure that they account for what they did. Because anybody who gives out money without having received an invoice, without regard for work that has been done, should actually be taken to task. In relation, Honorable Shivambu, with these statements that have been made about my removal, I must tell you that when I was appointed Deputy President, I accepted the appointment because it is the President's prerogative to appoint or to remove anybody on the executive. And if the decision is to remove me, I will accept that as a decision that will have been taken by the President and I will continue serving the people of South Africa in one form, shape, or another. That's all I can say on this matter.
The Honorable Mazzoni.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Deputy President, given what you've just said about meddling in state-owned entities, I hope you're going to use your influence to make sure that no one meddles in the Public Enterprises Committee while we execute our constitutional mandate of oversight as we look at our public enterprises. I think that more than ever we are going to need you to stand up, man up, and make sure that that committee is left to do their business and be protected. But Deputy President, given the gross financial mismanagement at these state-owned entities, specifically those that fall under public enterprises, would you agree that it's now time for Minister Lynn Brown to be removed as Minister, given the implications of her dealings with possible corruption, with overseeing entities that are quite clearly involved in state capture, gross financial mismanagement such as Denel? I think the time has now come for Minister Brown to be removed from her position, someone more capable to be placed in her position to take over and look after these entities, start leading them in the right direction. And Deputy President, if you don't agree with me, I'd like to know why.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Let me immediately say, Honorable Manzoni, Minister Brown, like me, is appointed at the pleasure of the President. Now, I am appointed, and so is she. If I were to be fired, it will be at the pleasure of the President. And similarly, anything that could happen to Minister Brown would also be at the pleasure of the President. So it is not for me to say who should be appointed, who should be fired. Like I am also part of those who are appointed and fired. Now, I would like maybe then to suggest to you that you should pose that question to the President, who does all these firings and all these appointments himself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy President. Before I proceed to the next question, I just wish to welcome the pupils from Bloemhof Girls High in Stellenbosch. They are from grade 10 and 11 in economics with their teachers, Mrs. Lezan and Van Rooyen and Mrs. Anne-Marie Klenk. Welcome. We now come to question number 38 from the Honorable Reverend Mishwe. The Honorable Deputy President.
Just to say to the girls from Bloemhof High, I'm sorry you come to Parliament when I'm being grilled. Madam Speaker, the current global and economic downturn has seen a contraction in investment flows globally, and our own country has not been immune to the contraction. The global trend in relation to foreign direct investment flows is to invest domestically and also in the traditional developed markets of the world and big emerging economies such as China and India. South Africa's drop in the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Report, ranking from 47 to 61, is attributed to an increase, as they said, to corruption, to crime and theft and government instability. That means that we need to decisively tackle corruption and address the governance challenges as a matter of urgency in our country. At the same time, we need to strengthen our efforts to promote investment. Government has established the IMC on investment to oversee our overall investment policy. alignment, coordination, and improve investment climate. As part of this approach and in consultation with the private sector, we have established an intergovernmental clearinghouse, which we call Invest South Africa, as a one-stop shop approach to investment. To counter negative perceptions, Invest South Africa meets with investors on a number of platforms to discuss investment opportunities and to discuss the concerns that investors may have about investing in South Africa. In view of the slowed growth and the decline in foreign direct investment, Invest South Africa is intensifying its effort to do a number of things, and one of those is to find ways of attracting foreign and domestic investment in our country. It has also formalized a relationship with the World Bank to address South Africa's ranking in its annual Ease of Doing Business survey and overall investment climate issues over the medium to long term. Now, this entity we call Invest South Africa continues to do a wonderful job with regard to marketing South Africa and to market it as a lucrative and attractive investment destination. For the first 2 quarters of this year, Invest South Africa has achieved quite a wonderful feat in that it has achieved an investment pipeline of a whopping 42.7 billion rand. More probably, and more broadly rather, government's massive infrastructure program is improving conditions for investment, as foreign investors can see that the government is prepared to invest in its own economy. Incentive programs like that in the auto industry are continuously attracting new investment and are encouraging companies to expand their operations, as we will have seen with a number of these companies investing more money to expand their operations and raise their productivity. Despite the challenges, investors see South Africa, Madam Speaker, as an attractive investment opportunity and destination, as well as a viable long-term investment place. If we are to realize our economic potential, however, we need to meaningfully address the problem of corruption and the stability in government. Once we have done that, I'm certain that investor confidence will improve in South Africa, and we will be able to once again move up, Honorable Mishwe, in the global competitiveness rankings. I have no doubt that the dip that we have had is a momentary one. We will rise again. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mishwe.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Failure by government to effectively deal with persistent high levels of crime, corruption, state looting, and government instability is one of the main reasons why the triple challenges of poverty, unemployment, and inequality continue to haunt us. President Jacob Zuma's latest cabinet reshuffle, after 7 months since the last one, seriously undermines any effort to restore and inspire business confidence, which we need to improve our prospects for economic growth. Deputy President, there are unconfirmed media reports that you could be the next to be reshuffled by the President because you are being accused of being a spy for the Western capitalists. This speculation creates even further uncertainty. How will government improve our global competitiveness and inspire business confidence when government instability and political uncertainty are being exacerbated by unwise decisions such as the latest cabinet reshuffle by the President and talks of more reshuffles that would even target you, Deputy President? Thank you.
The Honorable, the Deputy President.
Now, Honorable Speaker, the issue of instability has been raised by those who rate us globally, And when they have looked at us, they see all those issues I referred to, corruption, crime, as well as instability. And truth be told, as we do a number of things and as we act like, for instance, the recent cabinet reshuffle, we must admit that it has added to the narrative of instability, largely because the changes that have been effected were effected only a few months after the last change. Now, the one that you are positing about my removal, as I indicated earlier, is a matter that I cannot comment anything about because I'm not the one who decides on these matters. And if I were to be removed, it would be at the pleasure of the President. And whatever its impact would be something that will have to be analyzed by a whole number of other people. I'm not able to analyze what the impact is likely to be. But it is the President's decision, and the President exercises his prerogative on matters like these as he takes his decisions, and clearly he must have his own reasons why he appoints and removes people, which we are not privy to. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Filtane.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Good afternoon, Honorable Deputy President. I would hope that your body language doesn't tell us that you are tired. Thank you very much for sitting up. Deputy President, tourism is under attack. We are all well aware of the frequent attacks on people who come into the country intending to stay for 2 weeks, and yet they go back the very following day. And that definitely has a negative impact insofar as reliability of our security forces is concerned. Time and time again, we sit with reports indicating that departments are being so poorly run with irregular expenditure, fruitless expenditure, under expenditure. This dampens the enthusiasm of any potential investor, especially if they're considering coming in as partners to government when the other party is not running its own business as well. Now, where criminality is on the high, resulting in social instability where investors would want more stability. Lastly, incompetent and inappropriately qualified labor force does not augur well for a country that is looking to attract investors, because you end up with people who cannot do the basic things that need to be done in, in the economic circles. What is your response to that? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker and Honorable Filtane, as I indicated earlier, some of the key challenges that face our country indeed are corruption as well as criminality. The issue that you raised about tourism being under attack is one case in point, where tourists, for instance, arrived from Holland and were in a bus, and then they were attacked. And some of those who attacked them, we are told, happened to be police officials. Now, that is a matter of serious concern. Hence, we have dropped in our global competitiveness rankings. And these are matters that are clear indicators to us on what needs to be done. Because we need to root out, one, corruption. We also need to root out criminality. Also within the state sector, where we have deployed people who are supposed to perform their tasks and to perform them to the best of their ability. Now, where we find that people are not performing their tasks and they are not serving the people of South Africa, they should be removed. They should be removed from those positions, and we should, following great due diligence, make sure that we appoint people who are able to perform the tasks that they are supposed to be given. We should not just appoint people for the sake of them being in positions to please whoever. We should appoint people who are ready, willing, and able and capable of serving the people of South Africa. This is what is important, and this is what will get us to resolve the challenges that we face. If we are to do that, and we are to do that doggedly, we will be able to reduce corruption in our country and to reduce criminality. If we can do that, then you will see that we become a very attractive nation to the world, and people will continue streaming to our shores. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Kulu.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I apologize. We had a little problem with the buttons here today.
You do look like Mr. Kulu.
It's just faster on the button. Honorable Deputy President, apart from the global competitive index, you also mentioned the World Bank, and currently we are rated 125 out of 190 countries, 79th overall, which doesn't make good reading at all. Also the question about what is the additional steps for government. The NDP, Pakisa, the 14-point plan, the 9-point plan, nothing will make, they will not deliver more on target unless they are overseen by a dedicated ministry, and this is not happening. Political decisions and matters that have economic consequences will naturally affect investor confidence. Decisions like our most recent self-serving reshuffling of cabinet. I know it must be very difficult for you, sir, but how concerning is it for you as leader of business? It's under your watch that this government is cornering itself into irrelevance while at the same time setting fire to business and investor confidence in this country. So where do we go from here? How do you propose we overcome this? Are we not more concerned about damage control than rooting out a rot? Thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Clearly, we have our challenges and we have our work cut out for us. Now, these challenges that we face should not tell us that we should run away or give up. What these challenges should tell us is that we must buckle down and do the work that needs to be done. In my book, there are really 4 determinants. The first one is how you allocate your resources in any undertaking is what is important, and how you make sure that those resources are well used, are well managed. Now, that would address the question of utilizing our resources properly and also avoiding corruption. The second one is who do you place in certain positions to make sure that you execute your objectives. Now, we need, as I was saying earlier, to appoint the right people to do the job at hand. And the third one is to make sure that there's implementation. And implementation means that there must also be accountability and consequence. Because if there is no consequence, then we are going nowhere. And on an ongoing basis, we must be able to monitor what we are doing. Now, if we were to combine all these, having set out what our objectives are, we should be able to have all the wherewithal, the instruments to address all these. Now, if we now know where we are, our ranking on a number of fronts has gone down, but the wheels have not come off. The wheels have not come off. There is still the pillars of our democracy, the pillars of what has made up this South Africa we live in now are still in place. The foundation is there. All we need to do is to realize that we are now going down and we are hitting rock bottom, and the only way is to go up and address these challenges, root out corruption, have the right people in the right positions, and implement the plans that we have. If we can do that, honorable member, this country will start rising in the world rankings, and we will become the jewel that our people would like South Africa to be. And that is where we are headed. Now we know what the real challenges are. we can only go one way, and that is up and get better and better at everything we do. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Mkhali P.
Ngiyabonga Somlong. Deputy President, one of the mentioned reasons for decline in global competitiveness index is state looting, right? You are reported to have mentioned the issue of state capture in various platforms. And you correctly identify the Gupta family as element to the whole problem of the state capture. But one of the Gupta brothers said you are misinformed about the family, and he challenged you to back up the claims that the family is using and abusing public funds. Now, Deputy President, can you put it on record here and assure the public that you are not part of the state capture? Why do you say that the Gupta family is abusing public funds? Thank you.
Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. When you say I'm not part of state capture, I hope you're not saying that I'm also capturing, because I'm not capturing and I'm not captured. That should be clear on the record. And by whoever, foreign forces or Guptas or whoever, I'm not captured, and I'm absolutely clear about that. In my own conscience, in my own heart, I have never been captured by anyone. Now, having said that, I mean, the evidence that is clearly coming out, the evidence that is coming out through what we are reading in the emails and so forth, does in the end give a lot of evidence, and some of it might be circumstantial, some of it might be direct evidence that that family is in one way or another involved in all this. Now, it is for this reason that we have called for a commission of inquiry, and that family should welcome the appointment of a commission of inquiry, so that they should have an opportunity of also clearing their own names. They must subject themselves to the commission, and we're hoping that this commission should be appointed soon. And the President, I know for a fact, has been busy at it and working out precisely how this commission should function. So we should all look forward to this commission of inquiry being appointed so that it can do its work. Thank you very much.
We now come to question number 39, asked by the Honorable Malgas to the Deputy President. Honorable Deputy President.
Madam Speaker, the reduction of poverty and inequality is the central objective of our government's economic program. The most effective way to reduce poverty is through the creation of jobs and the development of skills. Since 1994, we have used a combination of instruments to tackle poverty. These include the reprioritization of the budget towards a pro-poor expenditure, social security measures, provision of services and facilities, and the redistribution of assets and creation of employment. Budget spending continues to favor those areas that have the greatest impact on poverty. As we work to grow the economy and overcome the legacy of apartheid inequality, a process that will take quite a number of years, our social security system is critical to improving the lives of the poor people in our country. The number of social security beneficiaries has continued to grow, as does the value of the various social assistance grants. Since 1994, government has been firm in its resolve to improve access for the poor to other social services, such as health services, social services, food security, nutrition, transport, housing, electricity, and education. Now, if you look at all that whole suite it's because the government has been very concerned about the poor in our country. It is important that our citizens receive the support they need to chart their way out of poverty. Key in this regard are government policies on land reform, the delivery of housing, the reform of water rights, infrastructure development, and meeting of energy requirements. Through the implementation of the public employment programs, particularly the expanded public works program, many poor households are able to receive a stipend that goes a long way in alleviating poverty. And we're counting hundreds of thousands of South Africans who are benefiting in this program every year. In fact, we count up to 1 million a year. Additionally, we have seen services being delivered through labor-intensive methods while creating assets and effecting training to people who are less skilled and who need skills to be able to get on with their lives. In conclusion, there are a number of strategies that government is employing to combat poverty. Some involve the provision of basic services such as healthcare, as I've indicated, and all these programs are meant to make sure that our people do live in a situation where their dire conditions are alleviated. One could ask, are all these having an impact? And I'd like to believe that they are making an impact, much as the Statistician General's report indicated that poverty has increased in our country, but in the main, we've been able to reduce poverty over the many years, and we need to do much more than what we have been doing in the past. Do we have plans in place to do so? Yes, government is determined on an ongoing basis to look after poor people in our country, and not only look after them, but to give them the tools, the wherewithal, to be able to get out of the position of poverty. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The Honorable Malgas.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy President. Having observed International Day for the Eradication of Poverty on the 17th of October, which acknowledged the call to action made on the 17th of October 1987 to break the silence of poverty and to act in solidarity to put an end to poverty and to build a path towards peaceful and inclusive societies. This requires all nations to heed the calls made by the UN and honor human dignity of people living in poverty, and to continue to fight to end the discrimination they suffer. My question, Deputy President, could you elaborate, because you spoke about the plans government has, could you elaborate on the plans government has in place in relation to create jobs, improve local economy, and promote and empower small, medium, and micro enterprise business in impoverished areas? I thank you.
The Honorable Deputy President.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much, Honorable Malgas. The government continues through a number of initiatives and interventions to seek ways of addressing the situation of poverty in our country, as I indicated, through a variety of programs. The policy thrust of our government is pro-poor. We are determined to make sure that we eradicate poverty in our country, and nearly every program that we embark upon is aimed at addressing the situation of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. This triple challenge that our country continues to face is a clear focus of our government, and the prioritization of our budgetary process is aimed at precisely addressing these three challenges. Now, when it comes, for instance, to localization, empowering people at the local level so that there is inclusive growth, that is one area that we're focusing on to make sure that the economic interventions that we embark upon are aimed at precisely addressing this. This past week, we were in an area in the Free State where we were looking at the public employment programs that we've got there. And the pleasing thing is that even through these types of public employment programs, we are focusing more and more on localizing the participation of people. We know, like, for instance, we were at a road building initiative or intervention where our government in the Free State is building or constructing a road of some 13 kilometers. And what they have sought to do is to use local labor, is to use local materials as much as possible, and have dispensed with the notion of having big construction companies. Now, this is helping the people on the local level to become economically active. They participate in this project on their own. Small and medium enterprises are being formed. Training is taking place. So through a plethora of initiatives, we are giving life and meaning to the concept of inclusive growth through localization. And on the small and medium enterprise side, our government is committed to supporting small and medium enterprises, to grow them, to nurture them, and to give them access to markets. And through the set-asides that we're putting in place, these small and medium enterprises should be able to thrive and to be successful. So these are the initiatives, Honorable Malgas, which we are putting in place. They are aimed at addressing precisely the challenge of poverty that our people are facing. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Steenhuisen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Deputy President, I'm delighted to have the opportunity to put a question to you today. Because of the briefings from within your own party, I have to believe, this could be your last oral question session as Deputy President. It sounds like the only buckling down you're going to get to is packing your office. I'm sure the Deputy President would agree with me that social grants, although insufficient, are one of the key measures to alleviate the suffering caused by poverty and unemployment. Now, yesterday, Deputy President, the Minister of Social Development, Bathabile Dlamini, and her department failed to show up at the Portfolio Committee, where they were supposed to give a progress report on the Constitutional Court order for them to give their monthly update on the social grants crisis. Does the Right Honourable Deputy President agree with this no-show, and do you approve of it? And as if not, as the leader of government business, what do you intend to do to compel the Minister of Social Development and her department to respect the Constitutional Court and respect this Parliament? Or do you intend to continue to sit on your hands, as you've done the last 2.5 years, as ministers disrespect this Parliament? Thank you.
The Honourable the Deputy President.
Honourable Speaker, if that eventful day ever happens, that I need to pack my office and vacate, Honourable Speaker, I hope you will allow me to engage the services of Mr. Steenhuisen to come and pack up in my office. I will lay out the boxes and he will pack up my books, and I hope that he will be ready and willing to carry them out, to load them on a van and drive me away. So I hope he will be willing to do that. Now, coming more to this question, with regard to the Honourable Minister Bathabile Dlamini, this is a matter clearly that I have to discuss with her, because I have often taken time, rather than stand on public platforms, speak to the gallery, to discuss with colleagues that I serve with in government. about all of us, not only herself, but all of us, living up to the responsibilities that we have. And if indeed she did not appear and attend to the parliamentary committee process, I will be having a discussion with her, and we will do it in the quiet of my office, and we will make sure that indeed all of us as members of the executive do live up to what the public and indeed to what Parliament expects us to live up to. And I hope Honourable Steenhuisen does not find that unacceptable. He's nodding his head, meaning that he finds it immensely acceptable and very supportive, and I thank him for that. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Hlengwa.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Honourable Deputy President, unfortunately, I don't find it acceptable because we are on the brink of a crisis. The Constitutional Court had to intervene this year to correct the shortcomings of Minister Dlamini, who is dismally failing to manage the transition from the corrupt CPS to SAPO. She was supposed to appear before the Portfolio Committee in the morning and at SCOPA in the evening. She was nowhere to be found. So the direct question, Honourable Deputy President, is in the face of this crisis which threatens the sustainable livelihoods of millions of our people, particularly the poor, do you think that the minister is competent enough to perform the duties presented to her? And if you were the president, would you keep her on as minister? Thank you.
Honourable Deputy President.
Honourable Hlengwa, I am not the president, as you well know. And secondly, allow me the opportunity of having this discussion with the minister. It's possible there is some reason or other why she did not come to the committee and to SCOPA. Now, I would like to have that discussion with her, as I do with many of my colleagues as leader of government business. And in the end, by the way, it's not really entirely my responsibility as leader of government business, because it is the responsibility, now listen to this, it is your responsibility as Parliament. It is your responsibility of Parliament to hold ministers or members of the executive to account. It is your responsibility. Now, if I were, listen to this, if I were not to be accountable and you were generous enough, you agreed that I should answer questions today instead of yesterday. I requested that leeway because I had to be in Lesotho for their dialogue process. Now, I requested, now if I were to bunk altogether and not even appear here, it is nobody else's responsibility but yours as members of Parliament, because I'm accountable to you as members of Parliament. So when I say that I'll have a discussion with her, let it be clear that in the end, I'm not like a head prefect, I'm not a Sibonda. I am going to be doing so as member of the executive as Deputy President.
Honourable Speaker, but I think you must be fair to us as members, as the Speaker. When the Deputy President says they must hold them accountable, they are never here. And you as the Speaker know that on our behalf. So I put it to you, Speaker Uguti, tell the Deputy President Uguti, we want to do our jobs, but the ministers are never here to
Honourable Hlengwa, awuhlale phansi futhi. The Honourable Filtane.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Here we go again, Honourable Deputy President. The GEOCO efficiency still demonstrates that the gap between the haves and the have-nots is forever widening in our beloved South Africa. There is no stable and sustainable employment being created, even less so by government. Instead, mines are shedding jobs by the tens of thousands on a regular basis. Even the EPWP program, spearheaded by Public Works, is unable to offer stable and sustainable jobs. Less so the community programs run by COGTA, so unstable, with serious under-expenditure. Ongoing under-expenditure by government departments results in the slowing down of the socio-economic advancement of the poor. Now, I challenge you, Honorable Deputy President, here and now, to pronounce to us how you are going to effectively localize contracting. Give you 2 examples to show that it is not happening. Only last month, we were in the Eastern Cape as Public Works. A contract of 101 million rands was awarded by Public Works to a Pretoria-based company to construct Mthatha High Court. Pretoria company, not concerned about the color of the company. 42 million rands worth of road works. They couldn't find a single black company in the Eastern Cape to do the job. Your government, how do you localize it? In Fort Beaufort, a school with a contract of 54 million rands has been awarded to a Port Elizabeth company in Fort Beaufort. How do you practice what you're preaching? Tell us, and tell us now.
Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker. Speaker.
Yes, honorable member.
Speaker, we have school children in the gallery, please. Filtani must just try and reduce his volume of voice down, because he's just going to make kids scared here, man.
The Honorable, the Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, Honorable Filtani, I'll surprise you. I rather welcome the examples that you've put forward, because they go to testify precisely what I was saying earlier, that our general thrust in terms of addressing the challenge of poverty and disempowerment generally is to make sure that there is localization and there is proper empowerment of our people and shared economic participation and growth. Now, you've given 3 very, very good examples, and I will want to check on that. I was telling you earlier, and I went on this oversight visit with Deputy Minister Jeremy Cronin, Nkosi Holomisa, and a number of other deputy ministers. We were all together. Madala Masuku, Deputy Minister, and a number of others. We were out there in the Free State, and we saw something that is really exemplary. And all of us, as we saw this, had this great feeling that if this was to be spread throughout the country. The Free State one has its own challenges, because the cost structure of constructing the roads with local participation, local materials, is a little higher than what it should be. But that is a challenge that can be addressed. But the pleasing thing is that it's a project that the community as a whole owns. They feel that this is their project, and it has created up to 80-something jobs in the area. Men and women in our country wake up every morning to go and work on this road, which they've been constructing. Now, I would have wanted to see that as well in the Eastern Cape. I would have wanted to see it in the area that you were talking about. And it is certainly something that should start growing on us. It doesn't just fall from the sky. It's something that we should be socializing more and more as we get our various government structures to become more au fait with what localization actually means, and also to address some of the challenges that we saw in the Free State and find a clever way of addressing precisely those. I mean, I tell you, we saw how women and men are brick by brick putting up a main road on which buses and big trucks travel, and they are constructing the road as the Romans did many, many centuries ago. And these are durable roads, beautifully built roads. And that's precisely what we want to see spread throughout our country. In KZN and in some parts of the Eastern Cape, we've got women maintaining the roads of our country, stretches of kilometers of road. So this localization process is growing on us. Let us encourage it to continue. Where we find incidents, where outside companies from the local area are being brought in, we must ask those role players to halt, to see to what extent those companies can work with local companies to transfer skills, to make sure that the wealth that is generated remains in the area rather than be exported to Pretoria, for instance. So I will take what you have said to heart, and I will want to follow it up as well. Thank you very much.
Before going to the next question, it is again my pleasure to welcome pupils, learners from Amamfengu Primary School from Tsitsikama in the Eastern Cape. There are 14 of them with their 3 staff members who are accompanying them. Welcome.
Mama, xolo torhwana. Sicela amagama otishala nabo kaloku besibabizile kwesiya isikolo uba ukhathazeki.
We have Mr. Ngeni, Ms. Mdoda, and Mrs. Gugushe. Those are the staff members. We now come to question number 40 from the Leader of the Opposition, the Honorable the President, the Deputy President.
Deputy President, Honorable Speaker.
Deputy President, indeed.
The Interministerial Committee on SOE Reform is in the end responsible for the implementation of the key recommendations of the Presidential Review Committee on State-Owned Enterprises. Now, these recommendations relate in the main to the design of our SOE landscape and the policy measures required to strengthen the ability of these critical entities to fulfill their developmental mandates. The IMC does not have a mandate to deliberate on the funding requirements of specific SOEs. The decision to transfer funds to SAA from the National Revenue Fund was therefore not placed before the IMC for consideration. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable, the Leader of the Opposition.
Deputy President, sorry, there's just too much reshuffling that takes place, but anyways. What I wanted to highlight, Deputy President, is that, you know, recently I was in the Eastern Cape. I met a young woman who told me of a story of how she depends on welfare, depends on social grants. I reflected at length about that story and realized that, in fact, 4 children die every year, 4 children die every day in South Africa thanks to malnutrition. Now, I struggle to understand, within that context and within that woman's life, why we would take 3 billion rands of South Africa's taxpayers' money and help the rich fly on SAA. So, Deputy President, it's already been proven that the bailout that the Minister of Finance put to SAA, in fact, was in contravention of the PFMA. There is a midterm budget statement being tabled here that will adjudicate some of these funds. I want to know, Deputy President, is it not time for all of us as South Africans to be real about what our needs are and for poor South Africans? And say, let's sell off some strategic routes on SAA or sell off the airline, because quite frankly, why are we subsidizing rich people to fly at the expense of poor people? So is your view to support the bailout or to support poor people?
The Honorable Deputy President.
Now, Honorable Speaker, the leader of the opposition knows very well that the medium-term budget statement is going to be delivered by the Minister of Finance next week. And in his delivery of that statement, he is going to address precisely some of these issues that have to do with SAA and how this funding of SAA is going to be effected. Now, I couldn't think of a better opportunity when we finally discuss and debate the medium-term budget statement, when members of parliament will have that opportunity to dig deeper into the statement that the minister is going to make and begin to dissect even the propositions and engage on all the issues that will be embedded in the statement that the Minister of Finance is going to put. Now, that is the opportunity that we should all grab. So I would like to suggest, Honorable Maimani, that we should look forward to this statement being put to Parliament. And once that statement has been put forward, we engage with it. Now, you raise the issue of SAA, and you have been actually saying that SAA should be sold. That is a policy platform on your party's side. And you say, sell it off and sell it off right now because you're subsidizing the rich and at the expense of the poor. Now, on this side, we are saying this is a state resource. This is a state resource, and what we are committed to doing is to address the challenges in SAA. Now, today, certain announcements were made about SAA, the changing of the board, looking forward to a clear strategic approach that SAA should have. When the minister finally addresses us, he will tell us what the money is going to do, what conditions he's attaching to the money, how he's dealing with all these other regulatory strictures that we have, PFMA and all these other various sections. And the minister, in addressing that, that gives us an opportunity. Now, clearly, it should never be in anybody's mind to doubt our commitment to the fortunes and the interests of poor people. This side of the table has been always pro-poor people, hence the policies that we have adopted. We've adopted the clearest policies, and you know what? And you know what? In these days, we're finding that that side of the table is learning quite a lot. They are learning from the policies that this side of the table has been instituting. Now, we thank you, and we want to encourage you to continue your learning process, because we have great policies that you can pick and choose from to enhance your own policy capability. Now, I'd like to invite the leader of the opposition very respectfully, and say that let us engage with this issue. And in fact, it might also be a useful thing to all of us engage in a real robust debate as members of parliament about the positioning of our state-owned enterprises. For instance, I would want to get into a thoroughgoing debate with the leader of the opposition, not only on SAA, but on a whole range of state-owned enterprises, so that he, if he can, sharpens my intellect, and I wholesomely sharpen his intellect. Thank you very much.
The Honorable, the Leader of the Opposition. Oh, Honorable Shibambu.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Now, Deputy President, towards the end of June, the National Treasury withdrew 2.3 billion rands from the National Revenue Fund and gave it to SAA. And then towards the end of September, the National Treasury withdrew 3 billion rands and gave it to SAA. And a portion of that was allocated as working capital. And their withdrawal of those monies is not as per the normal appropriation process. They used Section 16 of the PFMA, which says that you can withdraw money when there is emergency. So that section of the PFMA speaks about use of funds in emergency situations. Do you rationally believe that taking money from the National Revenue Fund to allocate to working capital of SAA to bail out on things that we have cautioned you about throughout falls within the ambit of Section 16 of the PFMA, where you just go and withdraw money and you say it's an emergency when we have been telling you that there's a crisis, Dudumi can never get SAA right? Do you rationally think as cabinet that it's sensible, it's legally permissible to just take money from the National Revenue Fund that is meant for emergency to bail out SAA, which is badly managed? And then the quick issue is, you are giving justification and you said you're going to speak to the truant ministers who do not come here, you will engage them to come here. But there's a member of parliament who was sworn in recently called Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. Where is she? Do you know where is she? Maybe you'll tell us because she has just been sworn in and she's not here in parliament. Please.
The Honorable, the Deputy President.
Now,
Order. Order, honorable members.
thank you, Honorable Speaker. Now, the question that Honorable Shibambu has raised in relation to utilizing the National Revenue Fund and or utilizing Section 16, a legal opinion was obtained. And as I am informed, the legal opinion was also obtained by the parliamentary legal offices. Now, this is a matter, Honorable Shibambu, which in the end, the Minister of Finance is also going to address when he addresses us next week. Because SAA, being a state-owned enterprise, was facing serious difficulties. And part of the money had to go towards servicing debt, because if that had not been done, it would have resulted in the lenders of SAA all coming in a rush, in a most catastrophic way to demand payment for the debt that is owed to them. Now, quite a lot of juggling had to be done, and there was nothing, in my view, that was illegal. It was all done very openly, because we were trying to avoid something that could have had even a much catastrophic and bigger impact on the country as a whole. And we were trying to shore up something that could have resulted in a flood. Now, clearly, utilization of Section 16 of the National Revenue Fund is a matter that will be addressed. Some view it as illegal, some view it as something that has addressed something of an exceptional nature, and in the end, this matter will be properly outlined and clarified by the Minister of Finance when he does his medium-term budget statement. Now, in the end, the issue of the attendance of Honorable Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini can be addressed by the Chief Whip, who is willing and able to address it, because he's the one who is in charge of the attendance of members on this side as members of Parliament. So, Honorable Speaker, if you allow that, the Honorable Chief Whip is willing and able to address it. Thank you.
At the right time. The Honorable Kwankwa.
Thank you, Speaker. Deputy President, or should I call you President? I don't know. We seem to be confused. But you say this question broadly is about the reform of SOEs. And it cites SAA as one example of the challenges that you face insofar as SOEs are concerned. I want to take you back to the question which was asked earlier, especially by Honorable Ranto, because it links to this very well, about ESCOM. To say, for instance, there were reports in the past that ministers who were in charge of that public enterprise in particular, were giving inconsistent instructions to the board of ESCOM, inconsistent with the rules of corporate governance. What did you do about that issue? But recently, Professor Anton, I can't remember his surname, I can't pronounce it, it's here actually, did a presentation, testified in front of the Public Enterprise Committee, the inquiry. And one of the things he spoke about was the fact that the Minister of Public Enterprises, Lynn Brown currently, and members of the board of SABC they took steps to undermine the war room which you were given a mandate to oversee, right? Not only did they undermine it, but they made it impossible for that war room to financially turn around ESCOM. What have you done as the person who was charged with overseeing that process to make sure that those things don't happen and that ESCOM was in the right? Shabule.
Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, I did say that, in the end, the ideal position is that the corporate governance processes and procedures should be adhered to, where the executives of any entity are given the right to run the enterprise as best as they can, without any undue influence and interference from those who are not members of the executive, and they should be accountable to their board. And their board should be a board that will have oversight and give strategic direction to the enterprise. Now, clearly, there have been lapses, there have been omissions, and there have been some commissions in a way where all these processes were not truly adhered to. Now, when it comes to the war room was given a task, and the task was deal with the problem of load shedding that we were experiencing. Deal with it as quickly as possible, and that is what a war room is all about, deal with the current challenge. And the war room was able to make headway in dealing with that challenge. And clearly, there were quite a number of other processes at management level, at board level, at the war room level, and also at the ministries level. And it was in this regard that I actually went to the president and said, let's close this war room and let us allow those people who are given the absolute right through various, either the law or corporate governance, to be the ones who are going to run with the challenge that we face and resolve it. And it was to this end that the war room, some of us really recommended that you should now put in place a CEO who will be able to turn ESCOM around. Now, clearly, because there were too many entry points, we were seeking to end this whole confusion that was going on, because there was quite a lot of confusion, because the war room would come to a particular conclusion, and thereafter management would be doing something else, and the board would be instructing management to do something else. It was so confused, and some of us felt that you shut it down, particularly at the point when load shedding was now becoming a thing of the past. And we felt that we had achieved the objective that the war room was set up for. It now required a focused management, a focused CEO to take the process forward. And I think the war room in the end, in part, did achieve its objective. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Tloama.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable President, Honorable Deputy President, your answers are more like forcing us to drink castor oil. The Minister of Finance and his deputy are busy choking the Treasury and the PIC in order to fill the bottomless pit of SAA, which has become a house of plunder and theft. Why are you not standing up to these misguided solutions, Deputy President? Why do you allow the President to turn the Treasury into a Ponzi scheme? Honorable Deputy President, generalizing and philosophizing is not enough. Why don't you free yourself from this voluntary bondage? Don't you, before we can declare you an accomplice of this shameful betrayal, why do you allow them to use your image to achieve nefarious ends? Minister of Finance is wreaking havoc with the blessing of the President. Deputy President, is this Minister of Finance
Point of order.
Yes, Honorable Khatebe. Point of order.
Yes, I'm rising on Rule 85. The member who's on the floor has cast aspersion on the Minister of Finance and the President by...
Go on, Honorable Khatebe.
Has just cast aspersions on the Minister that they are in for the nefarious lento. They are looting this thing, the treasury.
The Honorable Tloama, do you want to withdraw that?
No. It's true what I've said.
No, Honorable Tloama, what Honorable Khatebe is pointing out is you are not raising an issue in the appropriate manner. As you know, the rules require you to.
Okay, Honorable Speaker, I hear that.
Honorable Tloama, I'm saying withdraw.
All right, Honorable Deputy Speaker, I withdraw. Honorable Deputy Speaker, I withdraw. Honorable Speaker, I withdraw. Honorable Deputy President, is this Minister of Finance better than the former Minister, Pravin Gordhan?
Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. Now, Honorable Tloama started off by talking about castor oil. Now, now, I last took castor oil when I was a very young boy. Now, I don't know what its effects are on an adult. Maybe Honorable Tloama can tell us what the effects of castor oil are on an adult person like himself. I don't know what it does. Now, Honorable Tloama is often quite flowery in his language because he also refers to Treasury as a Ponzi scheme and all that. Now, all those things are unknown to me. What I do know is that we've got a Treasury which is highly respected throughout the world. Our Treasury is one of our best performing departments in government. Now, you also want me to make a value judgment on my colleague and compare him with another colleague who is no longer a Minister of Finance. I'm not going to pleasure you by making that type of value judgment. What I do know is that our Minister of Finance is doing his work. He's just come back from Washington at the annual meetings of the IMF and the World Bank, where he represented our country with a great deal of capability and ability, and we thank him for that. And our Minister of Finance is obviously, in these very difficult economic circumstances, is dealing with a very, very, very difficult challenge. And more than anything else, you should be wishing him well for next week when he delivers his very first medium-term budget statement. And I would like you, with your usual flowery language, to be heaping a lot of, not praise, but encouragement to him as he delivers his statement. That's what he needs, so that he has vision and wisdom and ability to steer our economy in the right path. Thank you very much, Honorable Tlowama.
We now come to question number 41.
Speaker.
Who's calling?
For your attention here. Speaker, something has happened next to Honorable Tlowama. Can we get some assistance, please?
We'll get somebody to come and help.
Honorable Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Tlowama.
Can we declare Mr. Chauke that he's sick, he needs help?
Madam Speaker.
Sounds like we need a clinic in the corner there.
Madam Speaker.
Yes, Honorable.
I wouldn't worry too much. I went to have a look. It was the ANC manifesto lying on the floor.
We now come to question number 41, honorable members, which has been asked by the Honorable Matlalela. Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, the challenges that face our young people require urgent and sustained action by all social partners. Our blueprint in seeking to address these challenges clearly is the National Youth Policy 2020, which proposes a range of interventions, including interventions to support youth absorption in employment, providing work exposure, developing and supporting youth enterprises, as well as cooperatives to facilitate economic participation by young people. Also, ensuring support, guidance, and provision of education and training for young people. Now, these multi-sectoral interventions to support young people run across quite a number of issues, including things like substance abuse amongst the youth, better coordination and implementation of the National Youth Service, and broadening sports and recreation opportunities for young people are just part of those interventions. Now, different government departments and agencies drive specific youth empowerment programs. The Department of Small Business Development has incentives for youth-owned cooperatives and a program on business development for young people. The Expanded Works Program also has a number of interventions. The Department of Education and Higher Education and Training also has a number. But in the end, government cannot address all these challenges that are facing young people alone. Strategic partnerships with the private sector and civil society groups are critical in unlocking empowerment opportunities for our young people. One of these key initiatives that we have been able to reach agreement with business on, an idea which came up when the Presidential Business Working Group met. We asked the business community and challenged them really to help in creating jobs, internships, and learnerships for young people. We said we're facing a huge unemployment challenge amongst young people, and we need everyone in our country to respond to this challenge, particularly the biggest job creation effort, which is in the private sector. And we said we would like them to respond positively. And having been challenged, they came back with a program or project which is now called the Youth Employment Service, which is going to see up to 1 million young people, unemployed young people, over the next 3 years being offered an opportunity to get into the world of work through internships, learnerships, and be able to be economically active as key participants in our economy. Now, this for us is a huge achievement. We're hoping that this program will be rolled out on a pilot basis later this year and on a more focused basis early next year, when we will be able to absorb, initially at the moment, up to 330,000 young people just next year. We are hoping to bump it up to at least 500,000 young people through the length and the breadth of our country who will be able to get into this program. Now, this for us is an important project, and we hope that young people will be able to take it up. What is it going to offer them? It's going to offer them an opportunity to get into employment. It's going to offer them an opportunity to learn the world of work and be actively involved in it. Now, a number of other NGOs are also involved in assisting young people to deal with the ongoing challenges that young people face. And in Botshabelo last month, we launched, through an NGO, we launched another program, which is called the TARI program, which is going to assist young people to be actively involved after school in a safe area. We're launching safe parks. This NGO is launching safe parks where young people from school, particularly basic education participants, will go to parks like these and be able to be helped with their homework, to be able to participate in the various other either pastimes or areas of activity, improving their capability in schools and so forth. Department of Health has also launched, as we all know, a program which is called She Conquers Campaign, and all these programs are aimed at making sure that we address the challenges and the problems of young people all around the country. Now, recently, when it comes to basic education, we were all saddened when we heard about the challenges that young girls experience in a school in Soweto, where 87 primary girls in Soweto were allegedly sexually abused by a security guard. Now, these are matters that government is determined to address on an ongoing basis so that we minimize and lessen the challenges that our young people are facing on an ongoing basis. Some of them are substance abuse and drugs, and we've got a plethora of initiatives and interventions that are aimed at empowering our young people. But I would say that one of the key ones, as I said earlier, is the economic one. We would like the majority of our young people to be actively involved as key participants in the economy of our country, and we've laid and we continue to lay out a number of opportunities, and we're calling on young people to come forward. Those who are tempted to get out of school, to stay in school, and we, as we all know, offering also assistance with bursaries and all that. So in the end, Honorable Mahlalela, the opportunities that we are laying out for young people in our country are quite extensive. This is a government that is determined to make sure that the youth of our country, and I'm particularly pleased that there's so many young people today here, the youth of our country are as empowered as we possibly can get. And to this end, spending so much money, up to 21% of our GDP, of our budget rather, just on education and empowering young people, means that this government is really committed to making sure that the young people in our country get a better life, a better life than their parents so that they can participate as active participants in the economy and drive this country forward. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Mahlalela.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me also take this opportunity to thank the Deputy President for his comprehensive response on this important matter, which has the potential to affect the future of our people and that of our country. Njengoba nesintu sisho nje sithi bantu labasha bangumlibalo yembili. As you have reflected, Deputy President, that drugs and alcohol abuse in South Africa is said to be alarming and a cause of or a contributor to many social ills, health and economic problems affecting the population in general and the youth in particular. This results towards crime, interpersonal violence, risk sexual behavior, a challenge that is denying this population group an opportunity to fully participate in the socio-economic development of our country. Honorable Deputy President, may you share with this House and the people of South Africa the extent to which these plans and/or strategies have been effective to create window opportunity, creativity, innovation, talents, and energies to these young people of South Africa. Thanks.
The Honorable the Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, I can testify to the fact that we have found that quite a number of these initiatives are having a positive impact on the many young people whose lives are touched by these interventions. And we found that quite a number of young people are participating enthusiastically. And when we do get them involved in these initiatives, they search forward and they want more. They want more of these initiatives because they are seeing great benefit. It is actually a joy to see some of these young people participating in our public employment projects. Many of these projects have as participants young people, and of course the others have as participants women. But the young people who are participating in these use these as a stepping stone and a ladder to accede to higher levels of economic activity. We find that many of those who participate do in the end find jobs as they move away from work opportunities to jobs. And as we deal with issues some of the social issues that have to deal with drug and substance abuse, we're finding that young people do finally realize the challenge and the problems that they are in. I had occasion to be in Soshanguve the other time and found that the challenge of Nyaupe is quite a big one. But we also found that many young people are amongst themselves taking initiatives to reduce the further attraction of young people towards this scourge of substance abuse. And they need assistance. They need to be assisted to be pulled away from all these activities. This TARI program that I was talking about earlier, where an NGO is creating safe parks in a number of areas. It is young people who are driving this, who are getting skills, and our government is doing very well in training young people, training them as counselors, training them as mentors, with a view of assisting other young people. Now, this is having an impact, but clearly we need to massify it. We need more of these initiatives, and we call upon NGOs and all other role players to participate in this effort of empowering the young people in our country and positioning them to be active participants in the development of our country in many, many ways than one. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Masango.
Ngiyabonga Sihlalo. Honorable Deputy President, do you accept responsibility for the increase in poverty levels where we are sitting now at half the country's population during your deputy presidency are living in poverty? If you are not accepting responsibility, who do you think should?
The Honorable Deputy President.
Now, Honorable Speaker, all of us as leaders should accept that we do have a responsibility to lead, to come up with policies, come up with strategies and initiatives that will lead our people out of poverty. Now, it's all very well to say, do you, as the ANC, accept this? The Democratic Alliance, including myself, yes, Democratic Alliance is also the government of the Western Cape. Now, there is poverty here in the Western Cape, and let's never run away from that. There are people who are living in poverty here. Now, what is our responsibility as leaders? Rather than pontificate and point fingers, we should say this is a collective and common problem for all of us as leaders of our people in South Africa. As we were all voted into this parliament, we were voted to help our people have a better life. And we all, as we were voted, embraced a national development plan, and a plan which we all subscribed to. And our responsibility, therefore, is to see this plan implemented and reduce poverty, reduce unemployment. The plan says by 2030, we should have reduced unemployment to around 6%. Now, we have our job cut out for us. Now, instead of wasting time, pointing fingers at one another, we should just get down and do the work that our people expect us to do. So who's responsible? We are all responsible. We are responsible to lead our people out of poverty. Thank you very much.
The Honorable van der Merwe.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and to you, Deputy President. Deputy President, it's a fact that 3 out of 4 young people cannot find a job, and therefore many poor families rely on a social grant. You will also be aware that your government in the next 5 months must be ready to pay out social grants yourselves as per the Constitutional Court directive. But this week, in a report to the Constitutional Court appointed task team comprising of the Auditor General and a panel of experts have said the following about SASSA. It says, the measures taken so far by SASSA, together with the proposed deadlines, are unlikely to enable a seamless transition to a new system by 1 April 2018. So my question to you is, Honourable Deputy President, as a leader of government and business, are you not concerned about the slow progress between SASSA and the Post Office, which is again putting at risk the lives of the most vulnerable citizens in our society? And as a vocal advocate for the future success of the Post Office, can you give us the assurance that there's no deliberate attempts within your government to sabotage the Post Office and therefore keeping the back door open for CPS to come back as a service provider to pay social grants?
The Honourable Deputy President.
Honourable Speaker, yes. Yes, I think all of us should be concerned and be able to keep this matter on our radar screen, because it is important that what the Constitutional Court ruled on should be implemented. And so therefore, I am as equally concerned as you are if this is not going to happen. So we must therefore ensure and work that it does happen. I am not aware of any plans or machinations within government to make sure that the Post Office does not succeed and it fails. I am not aware of that. So I'm hoping that all these efforts that are being made with a view of implementing what the Constitutional Court ruled or declared. So I think we should base our conviction and our belief in making sure that that happens. If somehow it is being suggested that it will not happen, it has not reached my ears, and we'll certainly look into it as well. Thank you very much.
The Honorable Matthias.
Thank you so much, Speaker. Deputy President, the spread of HIV and AIDS is directly linked to, in the main, two factors: high levels of illiteracy among young people and lack of access to education opportunities, especially for working class and peasant children. And secondly, because of the lifestyle of some leaders and patterns of conduct of sugar daddies, of blessers and pedophiles in the society, especially among members of the ANC. Particularly the president, who is not a good example, when it comes to matters of HIV and AIDS. Now, the question is, are we ever going to roll back the spread of HIV and AIDS in an environment where there is no
Honorable Matthias,
free
just hold
quality
on. There's a point of
colonized
order.
education?
Yes, Honorable Khadebe. Just switch on your mic. Go on.
I'm rising on Rule 85. The member, Matthias, has just cast aspersions on the President of the Republic that it does not deal with these issues of AIDS in a proper way, as if he's promoting that. Please, can we withdraw that? Because it must come in the form of a substantive motion if there's such a thing.
Honorable Matthias, you know that it ought to come in the form of a substantive motion.
Madam Speaker, I never said members of parliament. I said members of the ANC. Some of them are not here.
Honorable Matthias.
I said members of the ANC.
No.
Not members of parliament.
No. No. Honorable Matthias, can you withdraw?
Withdraw what, Madam Speaker?
You withdraw your reference in a derogatory manner to the president of the ANC. Just withdraw.
I want to understand, what should I withdraw?
I'm saying your reference in a derogatory manner to the president of the ANC.
All what I refer to the president of the ANC is that he is not a good example.
No, Honorable Member, you know you went
That's
further.
all what I said.
You went further.
And in that line, what is it that I must withdraw?
You went further.
Speaker, Honorable Speaker, I don't think it's fair to ask a member.
No, Honorable
Shibambu,
please take a seat. Take a seat.
But what
I will look at the Hansard, then I'll come back and tell you what you said.
Proceed. Given these two dominant factors, do you think that is possible for us to roll back the spread of HIV and AIDS in this environment? And if government fails to usher in free, decolonized and quality education, is there any chance that HIV and AIDS can be brought down? Lastly, do you have the courage, Deputy President, to tell Mr. Zuma to release the report on the Commission of Fees for Higher Education to make it possible that we do a massive dent on the levels of illiteracy and lack of access to higher education in this country, to roll back the spread of HIV and AIDS? Can you have the courage to tell him to release the report?
The Honorable the Deputy President.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Yes, clearly, one of the key strategies that this government has embarked upon is to address some of those social ills that Honorable Matthias is talking about through education. And we have developed a very clear intervention through our Department of Basic Education on, for instance, HIV/AIDS, which is being rolled out in our various schools. and our Deputy Minister Serti, who is here, would be able to talk about that in terms of the effectiveness that we foresee this type of program having on the reduction of HIV/AIDS, particularly amongst young people. Now, when it comes to the courage to tell the President to release the report, courage is always there. I mean, it doesn't even really require courage. The President is going through the report, as we all know, and once the President has appointed a commission of inquiry, the report is first given to him to study, to go through the report, and thereafter the President is then able to release the report, and as he releases the report, he'll then be able to deal with the recommendations as government and say this is how government is going to respond to the various recommendations in the report. So it does not require courage. The President will do the job that he has to do as President of the Republic of South Africa. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We now come to the last question, which has been asked by the Honorable Gallo. Honorable Deputy President.
Honorable Speaker, the Office of the Deputy President does not procure any auditing services, nor are there any entities that report to the Office of the Deputy President. On the broader question, I'm informed by the Minister of Finance that there is no intention from the Minister of Finance to retrospectively review the work done by KPMG. Since government entities confirm the appointment of audit firms annually at their AGMs, the statement was to give guidance that they consider the factors surrounding this audit firm when they do so, because they have to do so themselves at their annual general meeting, and therefore a guidance statement was issued. The objective is to protect the integrity and standard of accounting systems, which are international and global accounting systems. The announcement was to ensure that good governance is not compromised going forward. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I now recognize the Honourable Gallo for his follow-up question.
Thank you, Chair of Chairs. Deputy President, I'm satisfied because I also wanted to check as to, are you going to support the Reserve Bank when supporting ABSA and your Standard Bank on this issue? But I'm satisfied. Thank you.
Honourable Deputy President, do you have a response? Want to comment?
I'm happy to respond to the statement of satisfaction. I am here to give satisfaction, so I'm here that the honourable member is satisfied. Thank you very much.
The Honourable Paulson, are you satisfied?
I don't think there's anyone in the ANC that could satisfy me. Honourable House Chair, through you, Deputy President, the EFF has warned the ANC about a number of things that are taking place. And only months later, you will discover that we're correct. You know, in 2015, we spoke about illicit financial flows. We spoke about how certain organizations have undue influence on government. We spoke about the McKinsey and KPMG's involvement in corruption. And we are going to warn you about another thing now. Since the Honourable Gallo posed this question and gave a really sweetheart response to your response, I'm asking you now, what is the sense in taking 26 wards from Matatiele, incorporating it into KZN, which is over 800 wards, taking it away from the Eastern Cape, which is about 700 and odd wards? What is the sense in that? And the EFF is warning you again. It's a big mistake. Don't do it.
Honourable Member, your time is now expired. Honourable Deputy President.
I don't know whether Matatiel has anything to do with KPMG. Honourable Paulson, we hear the warning. We hear the warning, and we note it, and this is a process that is underway, but because you have anointed yourself as a prophet, and I don't know who is the greater prophet, whether it's yourself or Honorable Chibambu, because he's often come up with these prophetic words. So, but we note what you're saying, and thank you very much.
The Honourable DG Mashlangu from the ANC.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Honourable Deputy President, for the answer. Deputy President, given what happened in the KPMG case, what is the government doing, or one can say, what is the government's approach regarding good governance, especially on financial governance in both the private and public sector? Thank you very much, Chair.
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Government clearly would like strict adherence with accounting standards, with proper governance processes, particularly when it comes to matters that have to do with the money of the public. We want to insist that as we manage government or the people's money, we should do so in strict adherence and conforming with clear best practice rules, governance processes and procedures, and the accounting standards that are often of an internationally recognized nature. So government will be making sure that as we address the whole question of the governance of our state-owned enterprises and indeed government departments, we adhere to all this and we make sure that as much as we possibly can, we do adhere. Now, this is where the Auditor General also plays a key role. The Auditor General gives a lot of attention to lapses in adherence to financial standards, financial procedures, and we're hoping that the Auditor General, particularly in the light of what has happened now with companies like KPMG, McKinsey, will be focusing more attention on making sure, yes, Bell Pottinger, on making sure that there is strict adherence. And if there ever was a time when our country has gone through a process where we should look at ourselves, this is the time, this is the opportunity, and this is the moment where we now need to have learned important lessons. Because all that has been happening in our country now should not just be something that has happened in vain. It should be something that gives out good and important lessons for us so that we never, ever, ever again go through this type of challenges and problems and corruption. Thank you very much.
The next follow-up question is to be asked by the Honourable Brotesith from the DA.
Thank you, House Chair. Deputy President, you are aware, obviously, from all these questions that there is great concern about KPMG, in particular the Matatiela branch, which is known as Keeping Promises Made to Galo. In this light, Mr. President, will you answer the following question? Will the Deputy President ensure that the SARS Commissioner immediately releases the now discredited KPMG rogue unit report for public scrutiny? And will the Deputy President, here and now, on behalf of the South African government, publicly apologize to the Honourable Pravin Gordhan for the damage this report has caused. Thank you.
The Honourable Deputy President.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. What you are asking for is within the purview of the Minister of Finance as the person who has oversight over SARS. And the same issue has to go with the apology that you seek. And I can say that the report clearly is something of public interest, and we will need to look at the efficacy of having that report being released, because it's a matter that concerns the public and the public is interested in it. And flowing from that, we should then be able to examine precisely what this report said. But from optically looking at it from where I stand, it is quite clear that the report itself was grossly unfair to former Minister Pravin Gordhan. And indeed, the apology that should be forthcoming from the appropriate quarter, which will be dealing with how we should manage this whole report. So I don't want to flippantly say now that this is what we are now going to do or say, but it is a matter of great concern because it's a very controversial report that has led to a number of consequences which were undesirable. And so therefore, we need to look at it very carefully and judiciously not in the legal sense, but in terms of just being very precise and careful in terms of what we do. But thank you very much for raising it. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy President. Honourable members, that concludes questions to the Deputy President. I wish to thank the Honourable Deputy President.
Honourable Chair.
Yes, Honourable Member.
I'm referring to the ruling of the Speaker, where he said he's going to look at the Hansard. I request that she looks at the entire input of Honourable Matthias. Thank you. That's what I'm requesting.
Well, the Speaker is not in the chair now, so we will convey the table will convey it to the Speaker. Order, Honourable members. Honourable members, that concludes the business for the day and the House is adjourned.
All right, well, a very good afternoon. You're watching News Today here on the SABC News Channel. I am Alicia Jolly. We've just brought you live proceedings in Parliament as Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa just finished an oral question and answer session on various current issues from the dismal performance as well as governance of SOEs to state capture, holding public officials to account, and the recalling of President Jacob Zuma as the president of the country, which is some of the questions that, of course, featured prominently during this debate. The DP stated very, very clearly and early on that he's not captured, has never been captured, and will never be captured. He spoke about how shared economic participation will actually emancipate generations to come. He says the whole country must move towards a scenario where we encourage collective efforts in order to generate and sustain shared wealth. Musi Maimane, of course, wanted to know why rich people keep on being subsidized to fly on SAA at the expense of the poor, yet no turnaround strategy has been brought forward to ensure the airline is safe from its current woes. Well, the DP then referred him to the upcoming midterm budget by the finance minister. And when it comes to Musi Maimane's suggestion that some of SAA must be sold off and privatized, the DP said SAA is a state entity that should be protected by all means, and that the recent announcement, which was today, of the restructuring of the SAA board and management is going to provide ways to rescue the policy model of the national carrier. Well, these were just some snippets of that debate. Let's take a quick ad break and I'll bring you more news in a bit.
I feel the real present.
And it's nutritious and delicious.
It's good. I really like it.
This celebrates being South African. We love our beer, we love our food, we love our music.
For knowing who you are going, you must know where you come from.
I'm excited to be part of this year.
For all your travel trends, catch us every Sunday